Back today, Verso.
Yeah.
Back with another imposter.
Yeah. We didn't actually make this. It just came with the machine. But it turns out we actually really like it. So that's where we're at now. Anyway, buddy checks. We're on, Matt. We're recording.
We are, yeah.
Right. Today we have Troy Thornton.
Welcome.
Nice to be here.
I left the music
Well
on. Rookie. we're only like 18 in and I'm still fucking around with the buttons. So Troy we have on today. He's a online coach to people that know what online coaches are. He's a personal trainer to people that are over 45 and above. Do you train 70-year-olds at all?
I haven't trained a 70-year-old. I trained a 55-year-old recently, though.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I should probably run my mouth. She's probably got a much better rig than I do.
Look, she's pretty impressive. She competed recently, and you wouldn't expect to. If I said 55, your visual, like if you created a visual of a 55-year-old right now, you'd be like, nah, there's no way. There's no chance that she's 55. But
yeah. It
takes years off your life.
I was going to say, well, and in a good way, as in how you look, not
It's like Benjamin Button.
The biological age.
You don't die at 60. It means you actually look like you're younger than you are, taking years off your life. How does one go from being a normal punter at high school to coaching? Like how many people have you coached now, do you reckon? You get any idea? Because you got 150,000 or something followers on Instagram now.
Yeah, I mean, in the thousands I've coached, so yeah, one-on-one coaching for sure.
Yeah.
And that's in specific category of fitness.
Yeah, so my niche market is bikini. So coaching ladies to prep for competition in a number of different federations, but I've also worked with just general population. So I've worked with a bunch.
So a couple of thousand that have competed then, is that where you're at now?
It's, I think, a couple thousand clients, but not everyone goes through the process of, I want to compete and go through the stage. Some people will come to me and say, hey, listen, I want to have a competition body, but I don't want to compete. Yeah. And that's probably a lot of the market that I work with.
Do a lot of them come to you for like weddings?
No, surprisingly not.
Really?
Like there are some ladies. I've got a couple of ladies right now that are in wedding prep, but that's not like
I love it. Wedding prep.
They're like, hey, I'm getting married in August or September, the wedding months, and I'm like, all right, like what's the goal for you? Like, what do you want to look like?
Yeah.
Like if now's the time to turn it on, let's go. So, but it makes sense that online coaches would work for wedding preps, but there's only so many weddings a year. I don't know how many there are. Yeah,
but there'd be shit tons of ladies having weddings. There'd be more ladies having weddings than there'd be women competing, I reckon.
Maybe you need to be like a wedding coach.
This would be something I reckon you can branch out into because you've got an app now, can't you? That'd be a thing. Get into wedding app, like a wedding comp on your app.
Wedding prep.
Yeah, wedding prep. You're welcome.
Well, look, weddings cost so much, even just for wedding photographer. Like you get a regular photographer and then you get the same quote from the same company, but you say wedding, double the price.
Yeah.
Just because it's a wedding.
Yeah, well, your wedding's your bread and butter for photographers. That's like they don't really enjoy doing it, but they know that's where the money is.
Yeah, absolutely. Even the venues though. So if you go for venue hire and you say it's for a wedding, they'll charge you a premium. Yeah,
true that. We're having a Warhammer convention. They'll be like, those boys have got $4 each. We'll give them the venue. Just thinking because a lot of it's similar. Where you're getting ready for that one day of your life that you're going to have those photos, you're going to put them on the wall and stuff. Because is there many people that do more than one comp? Do you find?
Yeah, I think there's the I'm going to make the decision to challenge myself type of athlete or individual, and then you'll have the ones that fall in love with it. But I think the ones that fall in love with it's not as common because some people just want to tick it off their bucket list and say, "Yep, I've competed for the first time, then I'm done now."
Oh, I'd do it once. Get on stage, get abs, get around in a G-banger and stuff and do whatever. Like the G-banger part I do anyway now, but like to get on stage and actually look good doing it as opposed to just doing it in my own time.
You actually could though. You've got a decent amount of muscle. If you wanted to challenge yourself, you could get ripped for like podcast episode 50.
Oh, challenge thrown down already.
Wow. We're 4 minutes in and I'm getting on the stage in a G-string. I like it.
Person with 6% body fat.
Oh, fuck. 6% probably. That's a bit of work.
It is a bit of work, but
what's average on stage for like amateur, like
for a guy?
Yeah.
I mean, average. No one wants average though.
Yeah, but like for a 42-year-old that doesn't really put in that much work, getting on stage.
If you just stop supporting KFC, mate, it'll probably happen.
Mate, I've tagged him in the last one. I'm sure that sponsorship's coming any minute now.
Yeah, if you got into like 6%, genuine 6% body fat, I mean that's really good.
Is that competitor? Like what actual competitors, what are they coming in at? Like males and females would be different, I would assume.
Yeah, the ladies are a little bit different, but for a dude, like you want to get as lean as possible because especially for a natural bodybuilding show, conditioning is the name of the game. So if you can get as close to 3 or 4% body fat, then you want to get your glutes in.
There might be a caveat on that because I have almost no body fat, but also no muscle mass. So I'm not sure that I'd be winning any shows just on the body fat percentage.
You'd be the recomp king though. If you just was like, oh, you know what, I just want to get jacked as shit, you'd be able to eat so much food and you'll just grow and stay lean.
Yeah, we had Al's been doing moonlighting as one of those skeletons in the corner. He just stands there and they just like do all the anatomy on him. It's been really good. Makes sense.
It's hard work though. I've got the ectomorph curse. In the 20s, you're just smashing calories, but you get a cold for a few days and all the muscle comes off again real quick. So.
Oh yeah, if you're not on a certain amount of calories, you have a day off. It's very easy to drop weight if you've got a fast metabolism.
Yeah.
Cool.
So, is there a commonality or is there sort of two categories? Do some people want to train for the process and others want to compete? Or what sort of brings them to you initially?
I think anyone that has a fitness goal that just wants to improve their physique, and I would say, look, what is your goal? Some people want to, for example, have a slim model look and they want to look like just a certain celebrity. Some people are inspired by different ladies on Instagram. It might be an athlete. And then some are actually inspired by someone that competes. It might be their friend. It might be someone they've seen on Instagram because it makes it really popular. So everyone has different goals. And then I just train them based on and push them based on what their goals are. So someone comes to me and says, look, I want to have a slim physique with big glutes. I'm like, cool, I got you. Let's just do that. I know exactly what to do to program for their specific purpose and what they want to achieve. And then other people say, I want to do a contest. And I explain to them what that looks like and the timeline. So if you want to do a contest and if you want to win, it's going to take a lot more time, the investment to grow the muscle, to have that top to bottom balanced, to step on stage if you want to win.
So a lot of people that hit you up and then within sort of 2 sentences, you're like, you're not going to get there.
It's all about the attitude, really. So if someone's really thorough when they send me a DM, if we're talking on Instagram, then I'll know if they're serious or not.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, is there going to be like some tie kicker stuff that you hear when you're like, oh, I've been thinking about competing, and you're like, oh, for how long, and what's your diet look like, and that sort of stuff?
Yeah, like, look, I think that if I even get if I open my DMs now, there might be an inquiry, and sometimes it's like, hey, I want to compete, but I don't know what federation I want to compete in. It's like automatically you haven't done any research. I know that you're not serious.
Well, that's more than I wouldn't have even asked you about a federation.
See, you know federations though, surely.
Yeah, but like I'd just be like, whatever's the closest to me. Like that wouldn't be a thing I'd look into.
Yeah.
And then I'd get there and you'd be like, those dudes are all juiced off their head.
Maybe
and you look like a
maybe you can have like a podcast off with other podcast hosts in your sort of target market. You could challenge them to pose down.
But that's going to end up just being me and Al because I don't know that we know anybody else in the podcast world at the moment.
Start calling out, creating beef.
We do, yeah. We've been trying to start some internet beef with some people, but at the moment it's a bit hard to get into.
We got to figure out. We need to have a kill list and have a top 10 and just slowly get through them and call them out.
Yeah. We look, to be fair, we do. There will be a lot of people that are listening to ours, like that are ex, like first responders and defence and stuff that would have some legitimate rigs on them. I don't know that they're doing podcasts.
I have called him out to fight somebody at an event that we might be planning. So we're trying to create a beef so he can actually do 3 rounds with someone.
So what type of fight are we talking?
Well, it depends.
It doesn't really matter which one I'm going to lose.
Yeah.
This dude's he's a unit.
Probably just
can't be
like
doing dick shit.
That's
really
demonstration boxing match.
He's trying to find like a pro fighter to kick the shit out of me in a ring is what he's doing.
It would be amusing. Look, it'd be like a charity tennis match. We'll mic him up and we can just hear him groaning.
You just wants to watch me get nailed.
About charity? Are you going to be a good bloke or not?
This is
good. I like it. Yeah.
Well, we get the right charity, man. I'll get bashed for it. It's it's just funny that we're like. So I've got Al to do like an open mic night before a comedian and open a thing there, and he's like, "Oh, you know what we should get you to do?" He's like, "I'll get like a pro fighter, and he'll just kick the shit out of you in a ring, and it'll be funny, it'll be great." And I'm like, "It's not the same.
It's a win for everybody except you."
Exactly.
Hey, you take one leg kick, it's over.
Yeah.
Have you had a few fights?
Just sparring in the gym. Yeah, just sparring in the gym. The first time actually I sparred properly was in Thailand against this Eastern European motherfucker, and I looked at him. My trainer was like, "Oh, you want to spar tomorrow?" I said, "Yeah, cool." And then I rock up to the next day in the morning, and I see this dude. He's like 6'4", 6'5". He's taller than me. I'm like 6'2", and I just see him kicking the bat. He's like whack, whack, and I'm just like, oh shit, I'm gonna fucking fight this guy. And then we start sparring, and I'm like, oh, I don't have a mouth guard.
Oh,
and he's like, I know how to spar. And I thought, fuck. The first thing he does is he's double jab, boom, straight right in the nose. And I was like, all right, I'm in a fight today. And then it woke me up. I was like, shit. Then straight away, body kick, whack. And I'm like, damn, this guy's like here he's not fucking around.
Yeah.
And then my trainer's like, easy, easy, easy. I poke a face, but in my mind, I'm like, yes. Tell this motherfucker to go easy.
Yeah. Was it Dolph Lundgren?
You know what? He was scarier than Dolph. Oh. He was scary. This guy was like tattooed.
If he dies, he dies.
You know what? He looked like, what's that? He looked like a security, like a crazy security guard. You have you seen Hostel?
No.
Like it's that,
I don't think so.
in Europe, like
I know what you're talking about. I haven't seen
that
it.
movie that they just abduct people, kidnap them.
Yeah, it's fucked up.
They torture them, etc. It looks like one of those crazy security guards that's responsible for that. You know, that whole setup,
That racket.
Yeah, that is involved in that shit.
Ooh.
Oh, got my sponsors in. They just went in my eye. Yeah, that's what she said.
Well, your eye's going to be full of energy.
I'll be jacked up. That's the fastest way to absorb savvy. Mark was telling me. He's like, just put it in a thimble and put it in your eye straight up. He's like, I'm all about it.
So how did you end up where you are? You were interested in fitness and I think you studied some nutrition at university.
Yeah.
Well, so what was the first thing you got into study-wise?
First thing, I was, I would say, it was marketing actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, makes sense.
Like a shit enter score. And my parents like, what are you going to do?
How shit?
Hey?
How shit?
Horrible. I was like not even like, I did not study, did not do anything in 12. I was just like.
Enter for other people. It's like the score you get
lazy.
from high school. So it's like HSC enter scores.
GSE.
Yeah.
I was super lazy, so I didn't do the job. And then, marketing. Then it just went from that. And then I did law after that. And then I was doing.
So how long did you do in marketing?
I think 2 years.
Oh, right. Okay. So it wasn't just like 3 months you went, no.
But honestly, it was just like, it wasn't really.
Yeah, but you still gave it a crack. Like 2 years is at least long enough to go, yeah, this isn't for me.
Yeah. I wasn't the biggest fan of it. And it's hard because if you're trying to, I think the problem is that I didn't have a clear goal coming out of high school. And that's why I didn't have any intention to study or didn't want to study because I didn't have that burning desire. I go, yeah, this is exactly what I want. So it was hard to connect my effort to something that just didn't exist. I had no goal.
So what'd you get into? Why'd you go to uni anyway? Just because you were like, I better do it?
It's like, I'm going to try this.
Wasn't your parents saying you have
parents
to go
are on my case and they're like, you need to do something. Like you're wasting yourself. I'm like, all right, cool. Let me just pick something, which I did. Which is the wrong choice, by the way. It's not, you don't do that. Not telling everyone to just pick something randomly. It's better to chill out and take the time.
But do you reckon because you got in and you realised you didn't want to do it, that pushed you to do other stuff? Or do you reckon you would have been faster getting to what you wanted if you hadn't gone to uni?
I think there's more to it than that. I think that I had the wrong advice. So if I had my time again, I would seek a mentor. That's the first thing that I would do. And then through that process, you can ask yourself the questions and have a good level of reflection and figure out what you want to do. And if you don't have the right people around you, you know, what conversations you're having, you know, who is inspiring you and who's keeping you accountable. I had nobody to do that. And I wasn't keeping myself accountable, right? So I wasn't even giving myself a real talk and the people around me weren't giving me a real talk either. So I made a few wrong decisions in terms of I'll go do marketing, for example, then did some law and I'm like, just do this, do that. And then went to nutrition. So it's just like jumping around too much, but because I didn't have a clear goal. And that's probably the biggest problem. How
would you go about finding a mentor though? Because if you're leaving high school, how do you then find yourself a mentor that's going to give you this advice?
See, now it's like, I think there's so much that you can learn even on YouTube, right? So let's say there's a really interesting Les Brown quote. It's better to be prepared for an opportunity and not have it than to have the opportunity and not be prepared. Do you know who Les Brown is?
No.
Name rings a bell. But.
Yeah, so he's this old school motivational speaker. He was one of the biggest speakers back in the 90s. Like he was the first to sell out, to my knowledge, like a massive stadium.
Tony Robbins has been around longer or less?
Tony, I think so. He was bigger than Tony Robbins before. He was
at the start, yeah.
Yeah, so his story is actually really good for the listeners to go check out Les Brown. His message is very clear. Research, study, review. Like what you watch, what you listen to, what you study, what you review is really important. So if you don't know what you want to do, and if you're like, I want to be a business owner, but I'm not sure what business, there's so much that you can learn, you know, and there's so much content available on YouTube. So it's like, all right, you want to learn about sales? Go check out Grant Cardone. That's one thing that I did, by the way. I bought his sales university. I was like, I need to get good at sales.
Yeah.
And there's a few other people out there that are really good in terms of content. And now obviously content's king. So there's so many examples of what you could do. And if you're paying attention to what the top dogs are doing, eventually that's going to rub off on you and you can replicate that as well.
Do you think it's funny that you were doing a marketing degree and then you went and bought Grant Cardone's one? Do you reckon you learned more with him or through marketing?
Marketing was waste time.
So you better
Marketing was waste time. It's. I think a lot of the time, depending. Look, unless there's a few things that obviously you need. Like if you're studying medicine, of course you need to go. But if you want to be an entrepreneur, I don't see the much benefit in going to do a marketing degree or anything else.
How do you find? So on the way to Grant Cardone, you could get tripped up with 100 content creators who weren't, as experienced and professional as him. Do you have any advice on how to find the right people to follow to be like an online mentor?
I think that's a good question. It's going through a process and figuring out what your weaknesses are. So for me, I was like, I really want to learn about sales. So then I started researching, all right, who are the sales kingpins? Because I had no idea. Mm-hmm. Now it's a little bit more accessible where it's quite obvious who the top players are. So I would just do some independent research, and I recommend, if you're weak on sales, find out who the top 5 sales trainers are. If you're weak in marketing, find out who's really strong in marketing. If you're wanting to learn about e-commerce, who are the players that are educating in that space? And if you can find out who the top authorities are, you can then figure out, okay, they're the top 5 sales guys. You know what? Grant Cardone, I don't really resonate with because he might be too aggressive, but I like, Zig Ziglar or whoever it might be.
Cool. So when you say mentors, they don't have to be a person, like an in-person person that is in your area, but...
Not at all. Yeah. Because at worst case scenario, you've got someone online and you've got content available. A lot of these coaches, or let's say business coaches or sales coaches or marketing coaches or education leaders, they've got so much content and free content online. And if you're going from not knowing anything about business to starting the process, you're going to have so much time and to go through all their content, and you're going to learn so much anyway without even buying a course.
Yep. So did you actually have any in-person mentors?
No, I don't.
Oh, there you go. I thought you'd like stumbled through like uni and then all of a sudden there was like a professor there. It was like, hey man, this is what you need to get into.
No, you know what? It's hard to take advice from someone whose life you don't want to live.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it's funny because you see these people and they're like walking through a mansion, you're doing this, you're like, oh, who's going to listen to this vlog? But there is that part in the back of your head going, has he leased that or is that actually his stuff? And then it's like, either way, he's still got better stuff than I've got. So it's like I've had financial advisors before that you speak to and they turn up in like a Hyundai Excel or something and they live in a house there and you're like, am I really going to listen to this guy? Even though he's saving money because he's living frugally and he might have a house like in Spain or whatever it is, but I'm literally judging him by how he turns up because he's talking money. So it's interesting.
If you're in a relationship and let's say you've got a husband or a wife and you're struggling, are you going to take advice from someone who's not married? Probably not. You want to go to someone that's 20 years, 30 years deep into their marriage and figure out how they've got through to that point. You don't want to take advice from someone who's divorced. It's like, well, you don't know what to do.
Yeah, he's forced divorcee and he's like, hey, look, I've learned some stuff.
I can rule these lessons out.
I can tell you everything that I've fucked up on. Okay, that's going to be valuable. But outside of that, like, what can I do here?
Yeah. Well, that's true because if you've got like 4 or 5 divorces, you can say what not to do. But you can't really go, how do you get a 30-year marriage if he's like, well, I've had 4 3-year ones. I can't really tell you that.
We found a real link as well between people that maybe didn't apply themselves but probably weren't directed well in school and into university. But then once they find their passion, they go on and kill it and they often like dive right into studying the things that they're passionate about. Is that what happened to you? And when did this flip? Like, where did you really become knowledgeable in the fitness industry? Do you wish someone at school would have, directed you more toward that early on?
I think it's hard to at that point in time in school, let's say in year 12, I wasn't thinking, I want to be involved in the fitness industry because I did PE education as a subject and a PE teacher was so cool, but I was never thinking I want to be a coach or that wasn't a thought. And I think that the whole concept of being an online coach wasn't around at the time either. So there's also the opportunity that, if you're really enjoying something, if you like sport, probably could look at doing something in the future in the sporting field. So it's like, if you don't know what it is exactly, just be educated. But I think that, having someone to guide you along the way is very important, but sometimes you also need to take responsibility and figure out what are your interests and then learn about that. So I joined the gym. I started training in the backyard when I was 15 years old. My old man didn't let me join the gym till I was 17. So he's like, no, you can't do that. You got to do light weights. Otherwise you're going to stunt your growth. So I think.
Is that a thing?
You're 6'2", he's probably right.
I don't know if it is though, but that's what I was told.
I got told that when I was younger too. They're like, something to do with growth plates or something. Like, if you lift too heavy, it'll stunt your growth plates. They won't grow as much.
Yeah, I don't see, look, based on you look at the Americans, they start weight training like 10, 11, 12 years old. And I mean, if that was a concern, I'm sure that there'd be a lot of shorties over there.
True. Instead of all the NBA giants that we have. They, I think the research is a little bit less on lifting weights in general. It's probably just like, don't go for world championship bench when you're 12 years old sort of thing. But a lot of even then, who knows? A
lot of these younger kids do like the NFL type of training where they train like powerlifters and they're doing like, close, 3, 4, 5 rep maxes, and they do that quite often. So they're lifting pretty heavy at a young age.
You're right. Oh, well. I'm not going to win the NFL combine anytime soon. So I've missed my chance anyway. So you go from, when you were at high school, did you just like stuff around, or were you?
I was fucking around.
There was nothing you were interested in high school?
Not at all. The only thing I was interested in was just trolling, essentially. Just trolling teachers.
Yeah.
And just having a good time. Yeah. I didn't have that clear purpose though. So that's the problem. And I look back and go, why didn't I do something there? Why didn't I take action? And it's just clearly because of not having that clear goal and understanding what I wanted to do, and not pursuing interests as well. I think that was the bigger problem. So, for people out there that are thinking, what I want to do something, but I don't know what, maybe perhaps explore your hobbies, figure out what you like. If you like going to the gym, cool. If you like cars, perhaps you should start really researching more about cars and figure out maybe there's something there for you. But I would explore the hobbies first and foremost, and then you can go from there.
It is interesting when, like, a lot of people we've spoken to were just not interested in school and we're just stuffing around. And then I don't know if there's like a thing changes where they're like, well, shit, I've wasted so much time. Now I need to be like, go, go, go. Or if it was just there was nothing interesting to them in high school or at uni or whatever else it is, and then they stumble across something that they're mad for, and then they're like, oh, actually it wasn't that I was a shit student. It was just I didn't care about any of the stuff that they were trying to teach me. That didn't interest me. Like if someone's trying to teach you geography and you're like, I could care less, you're not going to put in as much effort as if you're mad for it. But it's interesting. Heaps of people I know went to uni because they were like, well, I still don't know what I want to do, so I may as well do this because it sounds interesting. And then they do 2-3 years, get a HECS debt, and then they get out and they're like, I hate that. But I did it because people told me to finish it. And then now they're 3 years behind, more in debt. And then they stumble across some weird shit, and now they've got, this is it, this is my calling.
How useful is geography though? Like actually, apart from like knowing where Genghis Khan ruled, apart from that, no one gives a shit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think if people that want to get into environmental stuff, it's important. Like, how volcanoes work and how that sort of shit happens. But
it's funny to think about. What did we actually do? We looked at pages in an atlas and kind of discussed like regions. But like, I mean, I spent years traveling later. Don't remember anything that ever came up in high school geography. It all made sense when I was there in person and doing walking tours and those sort of things. But I couldn't tell you what we learned in high school geography.
Isn't it interesting when you do something practically? I'm the same way. So traveling gives you the opportunity to see the world, and like I learned that way as well. And I think that just going to the school system, is it really set up for success? And that's probably something that I would debate, because not everyone learns the same way, and some people learn by participating. And it's figuring out, like you're pretty much told you need to go to uni or you need to be a tradie. Like there's no other option.
Yeah.
There's no plan C. So do you want to be a tradie? I'm like, I don't really want to be a tradie. Do I go to uni? But I don't really want to go to uni either. I don't know what to do at uni. So it's like, I'm going to go to uni and just fuck around like I did, obviously. Just try different things, which was not a good idea. So I think actually in hindsight, if I had that time again, I would just I'll just get a full-time job. Doesn't matter if it was at a cafe, whatever it might be, just get some work experience. That's probably what I would have done differently.
Yeah. So not anything in particular, just go and get a job.
Get a job. Just get a full-time job and get some work experience, work on your communication skills, because even like just a basic job, you're going to start the process and learn about management and the hierarchy, customer service. It starts the process.
I think that's throughout. Like if you show any aptitude, as you say, in any job, you step up to like a shift manager, you're going to learn how to run a business, how to order things, how to pay staff, all those sort of things, which you could have paid a lot of money to probably learn less at university in a business course or something.
Absolutely. And even in the fitness space, there's a few interesting companies, like you guys know Muscle Nation.
Yep.
So the owners originally worked for HP Labs.
All right.
Right. So you can imagine where they got their hierarchy from and their structure in terms of their marketing, in terms of the sales. They seen how it all worked. That was their apprenticeship. So obviously they had their own vision. They thought, wow, we can do this ourselves, but implement our own vision and execute. And that's what they've done. And our Muscle Nation is quite popular. So they had their apprenticeship at EHP Labs, which that says a lot.
So concurrently, so from about 15, were you always lifting weights and enjoying, fitness personally?
Yeah, absolutely. So played football, did athletics when I was younger as well. There was always that in me because my dad is a heavy into sports, loves his footy, loves his cricket, and I was much the same. And I was playing like pretty good football. Again, I was like, do I really want to, I was pretty gifted in terms of athletics, in terms of speed and, football skills, etc. But I was like, I don't really want to play football like as a long-term objective. I just played it for a bit of fun. I didn't want to take training seriously. But the weight stuff was interesting because I was very skinny, ectomorph, and I was like, I want to put on some muscle. I want to press some girls. We talked about that off air. That was the first thing. It's like, I need to get some attention. I need to get some confidence and self-esteem as well. So I was like, all right, let's do that and start working towards building a physique. And then the physique come, and then it stops becoming about other people. And it's like, oh, I'm actually proud of myself. And then it's about, okay, how far can I test this? And, what do I actually want to do now that I've got a little bit of muscle? Like, I'm respected. People say that I look good. But now it's becoming more about what I would like to do and not seeking external validation.
I found with a lot of people, you go to the gym to impress girls, and then within 3 to 4 weeks, it just becomes about impressing your mates. You're like, especially if there's boys that go with you, and you're like, yeah, what are you benching now? And what are you doing this and doing that? It stops being about chicks, and then at some point, you wake up, and a lot of the times it's years later, and then you find like you're at a bar or something, and people are like, oh, sorry, big guy, or whatever else it is, and then you're like, oh, I'm actually a big person now. And then it's funny because you carry yourself different. Like you, same, but I mean, it'd be the same when people do like jiu-jitsu and that sort of stuff. Like when you get competent in jiu-jitsu, you carry yourself differently because you're not scared anymore. When you put on size, people look at you differently. They treat you differently. They'll walk around you or something if you're at a supermarket or whatever. It's weird. It's a different thing that happens and it takes so long for it to happen because it's not, you don't just put on size overnight, but you just don't see the process happening. And then all of a sudden one day you're just like, oh, I'm actually a lot more confident. I'm a lot more this and that.
Yeah, it's hard to like look at yourself as well and to see that build up. Whereas if you probably did a transformation, you went away and a family member hasn't seen you in 2 years and like, oh wow, you've changed, but you don't see it yourself. But
they can go both ways. You come back and your grandma's like, you're fat.
Oh.
I had that as well.
a little bit too much pasta or beer.
Yeah,
what are we having?
Yeah, exactly. Just everything. I think.
And those qualities, confidence, is that translated through to the things you're doing now? Do you think it would be harder to follow through or be successful if you hadn't built up those sort of discipline and confidence traits through fitness?
I think so. I think it's exercising discipline, which I didn't, as we discussed, like in education, and having a goal and going, this is what I want to do. I want to build a physique. Like my first thing was like, I want to look good at the beach. And, what did that look like? Oh, I need shoulders, I want abs and a bit of a chest because I had no chest. Didn't really have like a lot of definition. I was a skinny dude. So I was like, for me, that's what I wanted to achieve. And I was so focused on that. And I was like, okay, I don't know how to get there, but I'm going to do everything that I can to make it happen. And then you go through the process of learning, you copy the big guy in the gym, you ask them questions. So you put yourself in a position to learn, and taking action is the key. And in that case, obviously I started building that physique and gaining that confidence. And now that type of attitude is most certainly replicated in business as well, where it's like you may not know the answer right now. You have a clear goal and you'll figure out how to get there.
I find it's interesting with sport and gym and stuff. A lot of the time, that's where you find your first mentor. Like if it's not your dad or whatever, like depending on how your relationship is with your dad, but your first like male role model a lot of the time is just some random dude in the gym. When you see the big dude, and then you're like, hey, mate, what do you do? How do you get that big? Or like he might be a trainer. Like mine was a trainer over in Bourne. This bloke Scott, and he was a massive unit. But like me and like 6 of the other boys go in there, and we'd rock up. And this dude's like 3 times the size of us, but he talked to us like we were just, like one of the homies. It was awesome. And then we'd walk in, he'd start playing Top Gun, or he'd do whatever it was. He'd just take the piss. But we were like, whatever this bloke says is what we're doing. So like he wrote programs for us. He did this. He kept, when we'd come in, he goes, oh, what's your nutrition like and stuff. We were like, how do we do it? And then he started talking to us about business and shit. Like he was an awesome dude. And then, but other stuff as well, like in footy, there'd be coaches that would come and go. Some coaches would be like, yeah, all right, whatever. But other coaches would be, mate, you're playing footy, and they could tell you weren't going to be amazing at footy. But they're like, what else are you into? But like there's plenty of dudes out there that will mentor you in real life. And then obviously you go from there to who are the best guys in the world, like Gary Vee and all that sort of stuff. But it's interesting we find mentors without calling them mentors at the start. But yeah, the gym a lot of the time.
I'm glad that you mentioned that. I had a dude in the gym as well. It was like this older dude. He's like big chest, big arms. I'm like, I wanted big arms like that. And then you pay attention to what he's doing and you're like, this guy benches heavy. He's like really controlling the nega. His form's like perfect. And then you just start watching them. And then next thing you know, you have a conversation. Next thing you know, you're saying hi every day. And then you're like, oh, can I get some tips here? And it's the same thing in the business world. If you can connect with people that are like-minded, that exact same thing happens. So, the whole thing about, you are who you surround yourself with is very true. Because if you're going to hold yourself accountable, other people in your circle are going to hold you accountable too, to a different level that you might, you might say my ceiling's here, but then you might connect with someone like the dude in the gym who's like, no, you can go here, dude.
Yeah.
If we're talking about fitness, but it's the same thing with business. So you might be like, I can achieve this, but like, no, hold on. Someone with the experience comes along that's been there, done that. It's like, no, dude, you're not thinking big enough. You're actually up here.
I had a guy when I was doing my cert intake, and the sergeant that I was speaking to there, I was talking to him about going further up, and he was like, as he was training, he goes, if you're not better than me by the time I'm done, I didn't do my job as a coach. I was like, for starters, I was like, I'm not going to get to your level. But he's like, no, you should be better than me by the time I finish coaching you, because I'll be able to teach you the mistakes I made and how to get over them. And I was like, that was a solid thing from me, because I looked at him like, there's not a chance I'd ever be at this dude's level. And in hindsight, I wasn't. So it doesn't matter. But
you disappointed him.
Yeah, I let him down.
But how successful was that?
Yeah, well, it would have been.
Was it close though? Did you get close?
I got a lot closer than I thought I was going to get, because at the first time I was like, nah, there's not a chance I'm getting there. But
that's another thing though. It's like if you set your goal so high and you fall just slightly short of that goal, it's a good thing. People think that's failure, but it's not, because if you didn't set the bar high, what happens if you set the bar like low? And you just fall slightly short of that goal, or maybe you reach that low bar? Is that really a good thing? No.
Yeah.
You won't be disheartened by it. You'll set the bar higher even further, and you can fall short of that again.
I actually like this.
I was going to say,
The old
you
mixed
opened
berry.
it. Yeah.
Mixed berry.
I like that you were just going to drink it and just pretend. And he's like, yeah, no, I mean, it's your sponsor, man. I'll get around it. He's like, that's not as bad as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, actually. It's good. Actually, it tastes natural.
Yeah, wait till you start having like some
Now I'm going to
mad
get
ideas and
addicted
shit.
and just start ordering by the slab.
Yeah, well, I hope so. Use our code Imposter.
Grant Cardone. Just tell everybody. That's the secret, everyone.
Yeah.
Grant Cardone and
Savvy.
Boost. Savvy.
Do you have a Grant Cardone affiliate link? You want to jump out? Or?
Affiliate link 10%? No. Actually, you know what? Actually, that was the first course that I bought, and what was it? It was so expensive for me at the time because it took me a long time to save up for it, and I thought, all right, do I invest in this? It was a big risk because I didn't know anyone that was even looking at Grant Cardone. I think the course was something like $1,500, and to me at the time that was like an ungodly amount of money.
And it's a massive risk to just go, am I just getting caught up in the hype?
Exactly. And no one that I knew has done it. No one really, back then he wasn't as well known. This was probably, I think 2016, 17 when I purchased the course, and he was just starting to pop off. So
how many years had you done at uni before you did that?
That was because I'm 36 now. So yeah. I was pretty much finished with uni by then, because at that time when I bought that course, I was working in the Arnold Classic office. So I was working for the expo, and I wanted to learn more about sales because I had an opportunity in the office to learn. The boss was like, hey, do you want to do some sales for me? I was like, yeah, I don't have really a lot of experience, but let's go. And I thought, all right, I need to start researching. That's when I started research because I wanted to be good at it. I don't want to be a dud because yeah, cool, I'm learning from him. But for me, I was like, all right, I'm given an opportunity. I need to start learning and do some independent research. So for me, I didn't want to just do the job. I wanted to be really good at it.
Nice. And how long's this course go for?
It's at your own pace, but there's so many modules. It's huge. There's over 500 modules, video modules.
Oh, so how long did it take you?
It honestly, it took a few months to go through it because I would do it probably at least an hour and a half, after work every night. And when you go through it, it's not just, I need to just complete it as fast as possible. You need to let it soak in. And then you got some homework to do and it's repetition. Then you got to study the notes and go, all right, actually, I've gone through that last segment too quickly. I need to revisit that and go over the notes again because I need to let it sink in. And then when I go to work tomorrow, I've got to, try some of these things that I'm working on that I've been reading and studying. And then you do different things come up with a sales pitch or, work through objection handling and then understand the concepts properly as well. Because when I was like, here, do you want to do sales? I wasn't like trained in sales the way that Grant looked at it. It was a completely different process. And I think it was probably more, I don't know if it's an American way to do it, but they just had, this is your pitch. So your pitch needs to be, why you're better than anyone else. So your massive claim, your hook. And then after that, why can you do it better than anyone else? And then you go into, qualifying, and qualifying meaning asking questions. So, I had to come up with this pitch, massive claim, hook, why we're better than everyone else, then go into qualifying to identify what are the weaknesses in this, let's say for the Arnold Expo, it was more about finding out, what were their major pains? Is it brand awareness? Was it, a lot of the time it's brand awareness, but they might not have that exposure. So it's like, okay, we've got 50,000 people that walk through the expo in 3 days, Like this is going to, you ask them questions and then you pitch to them on the solution in terms of what your product or service can provide. So it was cool to connect it all with Grant Cardone and then making it my own and then trying it out in the workplace.
Do you think also, like you said, you had to save up for it and pay your own money? Did that make you apply yourself more than, for instance, if the company had paid for it and you just had to tick it off?
100%. I took it very seriously because it was my hard-earned money and I was like, this isn't something that – and at the time, I just bought a house as well, so I was on a budget. So I've got my mortgage repayments. I'm like, this is really tight. So if I spend this amount of money on this course, I'm not going out for dinner. I'm not doing a lot of different things. This is actually a sacrifice. I'm like, I got to take this very seriously. And it just added a little bit more weight to it where I was like, I'm going to do this properly because, it's a big financial commitment and I'm sacrificing other things that, that I can't do right now because I'm doing this course.
And so moving through your own fitness work, how did you come to be under the Arnold brand and ending up some sales work for them?
So that was really cool. I was working in the gym for Tony Doherty. And I was always around the fitness scene. And I looked at the Arnold office. I was like, oh, these guys in the Arnold office, like this is like another species, they've got this really cool job and they've like top of the food chain. That's how I looked at it. Because from a bodybuilding fan, you look at the Arnold office and go, that's like amazing bodybuilding opportunity. You got all these athletes, they work with pros, they have pro shows on and this massive expo. So like for me, I made it out to be this really, really big thing. And I said, Tony, like there's ever anything going on in the office, he's like, Troy, everyone wants this job. I'm like, yeah, of course I do. So I was just like, every now and then I just touch base with him, etc. And then there was an advertisement on Facebook saying that there was a job available. And I thought, okay, let's go to the DMs. So Tony messaged him, messaging. And I remember I think it was like Christmas Day. I went out, it was like, had the family thing, whatever. And then I went out with a few mates Christmas night, had a few drinks, etc. Got home really late. I won't say what time I got home. Anyway, actually, this is probably I might as well just say the time. I got a message. I was about to go to sleep. I'm like, had a big night. Got a message from Tony. This is Boxing Day morning, 7:00, saying, come in the office for an interview. And I'm like, okay, I can't remember the paraphrasing. Essentially, I was like, oh, what time? He's like, now. I'm like, shit.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm your guy. Like, I haven't slept, but like shower, did all the thing. And then I rocked up and I just pitched myself. And a lot of it was like, look, we're not looking for someone in sales. We're not looking for someone for marketing. We need an IT guy. I don't know shit about IT. I said, Tony.
I'm your guy.
I said, Tony, I don't know how to do X, Y, Z, but I will find an answer. I said, I promise you. So I sold him on passion and I was like, I'm going to do whatever it takes to learn this. Like, you need to understand, I will do anything to make this happen. And next thing you know, we had a 3-hour conversation. Then I went through all of the stuff that I seen wrong with the website and some interesting social media ideas, because I think because I wanted that job, I did that research already and I was prepared. You know how I said that Les Brown quote?
Yeah.
I was prepared for the opportunity. So he messaged me. I was like, people are like, oh, I've got to prepare for my job interview. Yo, I already prepared.
Yeah.
Had this shit in my head. I know exactly what I would do for him. So when I had the chance to have a conversation, I was like, let's go for the kill. And I went over everything that I researched about the company and what could be different. And I pitched him on that. And he's like, look, I've got to talk to the other guys, but you're hired. And I thought, yo, I got hired as the IT guy. I know shit about IT.
After an all-nighter.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's interesting
Tony.
because it just speaks to, like passion and trust, trainability. We've sort of had a lot of experience with, you can train the right person to do anything if they have that passion, if they have that wanting to apply themselves. So it's interesting that you found someone that hired you on that sort of ability.
It's interesting because we had the conversation. He's like, do you know much about websites like WordPress? I was like, WordPress? You know what I mean? It was literally that, like, never have I logged into the back end of a WordPress site. In hindsight, looking back on that, he took a big risk, but because I love bodybuilding and because he knew who I was and I was like so persistent, I was like, yo, I've got this. And to be fair, I took a lot of action to begin with. When I had that job, I was like, I'm not fucking this up. Mm-hmm. There's not even like, in my mind, I wasn't like, I'm not fucking this up. I'm like, no, I'm going to do the best job possible. It wasn't even, I'm going to fuck this up. I'm going to do the best job possible. Let's like learn. And I was like, started going on YouTube, researching like WordPress stuff. And then I realized there's so many different versions of WordPress, like different plugins. I'm like, okay, there's a bit to learn. But I took action. And I think that's probably always been in me. If I wanted to do something, I would always take action.
So he's given you what our high school geography teacher didn't give us, essentially. Gave you that little flair to start really diving into and becoming competent and an expert at something.
Absolutely.
I'm a little bit butthurt about this. I enjoyed geography. My teacher was good, so.
You had a good teacher?
Yeah. Mrs. Dempster was
Why
great.
did you have a good teacher?
How many countries are there?
What makes a teacher good?
Well, she made it exciting. It's not massively exciting. But no, I was mad for it, mate, learning about different rainforests, how they work, how the climate changes depending on how things are. And
wow.
Yeah.
So is that your pitch to when you go out and about and you meet someone like, hey, like,
I'm just here to defend geography. Yeah.
Rainforest?
Yeah. Look, I'm just saying, if you like geography, slide into my DMs. I'm all about geography. No, but the same as like I had another teacher where I couldn't stand maths, but then I had a different teacher and he made it funny. And I was like, well, okay. I didn't do anything past maths B because I lost him in the next year. And then I was just like, no, maths is shit again. But it's interesting that if you can find a mentor that makes you interested in something, sometimes it's the person rather than the subject they're teaching, I find, that makes you interested in what you're doing. But like, so Tony, for example, because he used to have like FitX or something, didn't he? Before it was the Arnold.
Yeah. So FitX was, I suppose, his apprenticeship. And again, like the whole Les Brown thing, it's full circle. So he had this expo. Then an opportunity came up where Arnold wanted to come to Australia and there were multiple people pitching for the Arnold Expo. And because he had that bodybuilding background, he was already doing IFBB bodybuilding pro shows. He had that experience. He's got his own expo, which was a fitness expo. That helped him to be in a position for Arnold. So they pitched Arnold and they obviously got the contract or the agreement with Arnold. And there was other people that were interested in that too. There was a number of different people that I won't mention, but Tony made it happen because he had that experience. And also there's no doubt that Tony sold them on passion.
Oh, mate, his gym, he made like Doherty's gym is like the Mecca, that one in Brunswick. Like even though it's not the biggest gym, it's not the most amazing gym or whatever else it is, but like the atmosphere in there is like that's where you go. If you're in Melbourne and you want to go to a gym and you want to go through, I mean, Ronnie's been there, Platts has been there, like all the boys have been there. Like Doherty's was amazing. And then when I went to FitX and then you see that, but he used to hang around after the FitX or like at the Grand Prix when he had the blokes would get there and like, pose around and stuff. But afterwards he'd be there, Rich Gaspari would get on and talk about what he was doing. And that was, to me, it was more beneficial than the show, was seeing these blokes because that's when I went from just going, oh yeah, like I just want to get big, to Tony was more of a mentor to me than seeing the massive rigs anymore. Because I'm like, I'm not going to get that big. I'm not interested. I don't want to get on juice and all that sort of stuff. I mean, it's different now that I'm old. We'll try and see how TRT goes at some point. But, but yeah, like at the time, Tony and Rich were more impressive to me. And that was post their bodybuilding thing because they were so into business and they were growing it. Like Rich was a CEO of his business. Tony's obviously running the gyms, and those gyms were separate from any other gym. Like now you've got Derrimut and stuff, which is a big box, interesting gym. But Tony was like the big man then. And then he had FitX, and then when it went to Arnold, you just knew that it was going to be Tony that was running it. Because there wasn't anyone else in that field that I saw that was going to be more aggressive in going after it for starters. But it just seemed a normal progression for Tony to be running it. And then it was interesting to see him and Arnie on stage talking. And I was like, one day I want to be talking to Tony because Tony's like my Arnie at the moment. So we'll see how that goes in the future, but we might get him on here. Unlikely. We'll see what happens.
He's great on podcasts. He's great on podcasts.
I saw him on
and he's got a
Sushi
really good
Mango,
story
so.
too. So he's been, think of it like this, he's been a promoter for bodybuilding events for so long. So he's a really good MC, and his story is really interesting as well, if you've heard it before, but definitely inspiring, especially if you're an up-and-coming entrepreneur, you're a business person, you're interested in self-development. Tony's story is a good story.
I think it's funny because people would look at Tony and just think of him as, like, he's a big dude. Like, he's got a good ring on him, but the interesting part about him is not the fact that he's like a bodybuilder or the gyms and stuff. It's the ability to create a culture that he has made. Like, he's made a whole subculture in Australia that has led to so many other people like yourself, obviously doing your thing through Tony. Like, I'd love to run events and stuff. That was because of Tony. There's so many people into bodybuilding now that Australia never would. Well, I mean, it might have had it. Somebody else might have done it, but Tony realistically brought everything to Australia with the whole fitness expo. And then, because it was only in Melbourne at the start, and then I think he had another one in Sydney. He branched out for once, and then, now Australia is all about fitness and that sort of stuff. So, but none of that happens without Tony bringing everybody over.
You got to have the vision. You got to have the vision. Tony had the vision, and he executed. And I mean, having Arnold, look, the whole Arnold thing obviously collapsed a little bit after the COVID. So like that was really a challenging time for Tony, because the convention center, at the end of the day, it's a business, the MEC. It's super expensive to hire for 3 days, like ridiculous. It's high six figures.
Well, some of the boys were saying
that's just to rent the space. That's not including everything else that's involved. Like, you got to pay your staff. It's a big investment.
Some people were saying just to run a stand, I think Mark was saying he's doing some nutrition thing, and a stand on its own for the weekend is $15,000. So how high the whole actual facility must be ridiculous. But yeah, it makes sense that it costs so much.
Did you learn something as well in the process you were hired? Like, is that a good way? Do you know if you interviewed any other people, and if no one was given any preparation time, is that actually a really interesting way to hire people? And he got you because you were passionate and you were the right person for the job, not the best resume or best prepared? Yeah,
I like the idea of it, because you find out, like, if someone's rehearsed, like you give someone like you want an honest answer, you ask a question on the spot.
Yeah.
There's nothing, there's no hiding, is there, from that? So I like the idea that he did that, and I'm sure he conducted his interviews. Surely he would have done his due diligence. But I think, I obviously stood out. I would like to be a fly on the wall to see what the other interviewees did. Like, what did they do to stand out, or what didn't they do? So.
I wonder how many people he messaged at 7 a.m. on Boxing Day to see what the response would be. Like, I wonder if that was more of his thing rather than who was going to get it. It was what he was looking for was more who was going to answer at 7 a.m. and who was going to come in on Boxing Day to go see him.
Possibly.
Because that screams passion and wanting to be there.
Yeah.
Which you cut out the other. Because he probably would have had 300 people wanting to work at Tony's. And he's like, but how much do you really want to work here?
Yeah, exactly. There's so many people that would have applied for that position, so many resumes. I mean, even when I was in the office, we had some jobs available, and the amount of resumes that we would get just to print off ones, let alone the emails, crazy. And we'd go through them and have a look at it. And I look at the resume, and I'm even from my perspective, I'm like, this is actually poorly written. This is just crap. You see, when you have the opportunity to look at resumes, you need to stand out. And I think through Tony's process, it's like, all right, Troy's, he got here like at 7:30. Like, what the hell?
Yeah, and
in the morning.
And judging by the sunnies that he's wearing in the interview, he has not been to bed. So, poor bloke's got a mad headache and he stinks of booze, but like, good on him for turning up anyway.
I did have a shower, so we're good.
It's funny finding mentors, because a lot of people don't. Yeah, like a lot of people, when they talk about mentors, they don't. It's not really a term that they use, even though when you're in the army, it's a sergeant, or if you're at footy, it's your captain or your coach or you're someone else, or it might even just be if you're in the forward line, it's your full forward or whatever. Like there's always mentors. You just wouldn't use that term. So when people say look for a mentor, you're like, oh, I've got to go to like Commonwealth Bank and go, who's your manager? Can I speak to him? Like that's not. It's not. A lot of the times you will have mentors, and they might even just be mates of yours. Like I like it when you're in a group of mates and there's like two blokes that are. You can just tell there's like blokes there that are going, oh, I want to be like the next Prime Minister or whatever else it is. And they're just in a different mindset than everyone else. And people want to hear what that dude's up to, because you're like, he's doing something, he's doing this and he's doing that. And eventually, if you hang out with that dude long enough, it'll actually rub off onto you. But if you stay away from, what do they say? It's the 5 people you surround yourself with is where you'll, the average of where you'll be.
Big time. I believe in that because you grow up in an area, and if you don't have a great circle of influence, stay home. Don't go out. It's that simple because that's what I did. I realized I was like, I don't have really. There was one point where I realized that the people that I knew weren't the best for me, and I was like, I just need to be committed to studying and learning. The whole Les Brown thing just stuck with me. When I heard that quote, I was like, wow, because there were some things that I do automatically. Then you hear a quote sort of during that process and it confirms that's the way to go about things. I'm like, that's exactly what I need to do. I'm kind of doing that already, but now I really need to shut it down. I'm like, but the whole thing about the 5 friends, I didn't understand that quote properly until like now I reflect and go, it's a no-brainer, but I didn't really get it. I was like, why do people keep saying that? And the whole concept of success leaves clues. I'm like, yeah, that's an obvious thing to say, but like it didn't resonate with me as much. So there's certain quotes that will resonate with you based on, I think, the timeline that you're on and where you're at in your journey. And then as you continue through your journey, other quotes will come back and resonate. You're like, hold on, actually, that makes sense. The 5 friends, that's because this guy's addicted to alcohol. He's a smoker. He doesn't go to the gym. He's telling me to go out and go get burgers with him all the time. He's not going to jiu-jitsu or whatever it might be. He might be complaining about his girlfriend or his wife at home, but like what are these people doing with their time and how do they communicate? And sometimes you're like, oh, this guy's a good bloke, but if you look at it and go, all he does is talk negative. How much of a good bloke is he? He means well, but he's just a complainer. Like that's eventually going to suck at your soul. It eventually gets at you, and you're like, hold on, this bloke is actually quite negative. Like, what is he positive about? What is he looking forward to? What goals does he have? He isn't doing shit.
The drum with that is like if you go to that dude with an idea for a business, he's going to shut it down. It's so that's where you circle. You need to get mates where you're like, oh, mate, I'm thinking about doing this. And like, fuck yeah, man. Like, I'm in that. I'm getting behind it. Let's do it. What do you need? And you're like, oh, shit. And then now you're accountable because you put it out there and old mate's going to hold you to that. Whereas if you got negative Nancy turning up, you're like, oh, mate, I'm thinking about doing this. Oh, mate, you can't do that because of this, and that. You're like, yeah, no, you're right, actually. And that's it. It's done. It's dead in the water. So if you've got mates like that, you can have mates like that, but they need to, it's like, what is it when you put your mask on before you help anyone else? Like you need to help yourself before you can help other people. And if you're needing to get to a certain level where you're super successful to then start helping people, you're like Dick Smith and stuff. Like now that they're where they are, they can help as many people as they want to help. Whereas if you're unable to live a life that you're happy with at the moment, you need to fix that before you can start grabbing other people. Because otherwise, and it's also friends and family too, a lot of them don't believe in what you're doing or they get negative because they're not achieving their goals. I had a mate that I was speaking to the other night and he goes, I hate hearing all these stories about dudes that are the same age as me who are super successful because it makes me feel like shit. And we were like, well, does that mean you need to do more? And he goes, well, obviously, 100%. He goes, doesn't mean I don't feel like shit when I hear other people doing it. But he's still super supportive of other people doing it. But it's just interesting because I think if a lot of people are honest, a lot of the times hearing your mate do something, because when you hear a famous person like Goggins does something, I don't know Goggins, so it's like, oh, he's a freak. He's not a real human. Don't worry about it. It's easy to palm that off. But when one of your mates is successful or is trying to be successful or whatever, it makes you have a look at yourself and what you've achieved. And then it makes you realize that I've had the same upbringing as this dude. I live in the same area as this dude. Or like if you both had the same job, you're like, I've got access to the same stuff. Why is he doing so much better than me? And it's easier to just sort of hit him so he stays at your level rather than accept the fact that you could potentially be doing more. It's interesting.
I think it all stems from what that individual hasn't accomplished. So if, said friend hasn't accomplished things, they're like, oh, why aren't I getting it done? Where's my opportunity? It's like, dude, your opportunity is there. You're just a lazy fuck. Like you haven't taken action. Like what have you decided to do? What are you studying? What are your goals? Like that's the first thing, like anyone that's negative, it's like, okay, how do you get out of that? Set yourself a goal. Like maybe the first thing you need to do, even if you don't have a business venture organized, like I want to be an entrepreneur, but maybe the first thing you need to do is go to the gym, get that discipline, get in shape, start eating clean, start creating good habits and you'll build momentum. And then all of a sudden it's like you're going to the gym, you're in shape, you're then all of a sudden having a conversation with, let's say, someone that owns a business and like, hey, look, I've seen you progress in the gym. You actually look really good. Like, you're dieting at the moment. Next thing you're having a conversation, you're talking to a business owner. So you got to put yourself in positions to challenge yourself. And I think through that process, you can then go to the next level. And the next level for you right now might be just going to the gym.
So that momentum thing's really good, because it's funny with us doing this podcast. We were like, we like it. And then it went from then to, we've only been going for 3 weeks now? Mm-hmm. Like going live. I mean, we did a bunch of them in our own time because we were like, no, let's not do it. but it's been 3 weeks since we started, and now we've got people who are reaching out to us saying, love what you're doing. Can we steal some of your audio, put it on our things? Other ones are like, hey, mate, look, we can't sponsor you. And I'm like, well, we've got 700 followers. Why would you? But he's like, can we chuck you in our newsletter? Other people have reached out saying, hey, you know what you could do is you can do a newsletter here. So now we're working with other people that are going to bring a newsletter out, that are going to send it out. And all these other people, Jared is a comedian. He doesn't need to talk to us, but he came over here, sat down, taught us how to do reels and content and that sort of stuff. You'll notice the difference between his stuff and our stuff being he's really good at it and we're not. But, like everyone we've spoken to has been super keen to get behind something, and the people that reach out are actively trying to better themselves as well. And it's a real positive space to be in, rather than when you sit around complaining with other people about how shitty things is. It's weird. Like you take 1 or 2 steps in a direction, and then all these other people start either getting behind you, or they're like, hey man, I see that you're trying to better yourself. Get around it, do this. This is what I did and it helped out. Because a lot of people I find that are successful, they get so many people saying, oh, it must be nice, or I'd love to be where you are, or whatever else it is. And they obviously don't see the fact that you've had to do work behind the scenes. Like you didn't just appear there. But it's interesting to see that once you actually start taking a few steps, the people that are ahead of you are like, hey mate, this is the easy way. Follow this way and come around. They give you a bunch of tips and stuff to help them out. I don't know if they're not threatened anymore because they've made it or whatever, or if they reward people trying to better themselves because they've shown, like if you show that you're actually trying to achieve something, people want to get behind that. Whereas other people are like, oh, everything's too hard. What do I do? Like if a person who was overweight came to you like, oh, Troy, I need you to help me. How do I do this and do that? And you're like, well, what have you done yourself? If you just ask me to fix it for you, you're not going to do it. If you're like, hey mate, you know what, I started going to the gym, I've started eating better, but I need to know more about it. And then they come to you, like at least they've shown that they're trying to do something. And I think that's a big difference between once you start walking a path, people will come and help you.
Yeah, it's also realizing that everyone's at a different level. So, and whether it's fitness or whether it's, in their self-development journey, and it's about communicating to people. If they want help, they know where to get it, So if someone's like, hey, Troy, I don't know what I want to do, but can you point me in the right direction? It's like, cool. First thing to do is go look at Grant Cardone's content. You may not like his personality, but his sales training is amazing. Like there's no doubt about it. That doesn't mean everything in his modules I really agree with and I enjoy, because some of it's the hard sell, the American style selling, which is not the best. But you don't have to agree with what everyone says to find value. You can watch Gary Vee's content and go, wow, this guy swears a lot. Like that's the first thing that I was like, I don't like his swearing. It's too much for me.
Yeah,
I don't mind a little bit of swearing, but it's just going overboard. I'm like, it was hard for me to watch his content. I'm like, all right, let's take out the swearing and look at everything else and focus on what I can learn. What are the lessons and learnings from his content? And there's opportunities everywhere. So I just think that people need to, it's all perception based. You need to take responsibility for your position. And if you want to change your position, you must do something different. Whereas the whole woe is me, this is hard. It's like, yeah, it's hard being, let's say, not financially stable. It's also fucking hard working. It's either way.
You choose your hard. You choose which way you're going to make it hard.
Exactly. Choose your hard. It's like, would you rather be financially stable and working 80, 100 hours a week, or would you rather be in your position right now? So the grass isn't always greener. However, what I will say is figure out what life you want and then reverse engineer everything else, and you'll eventually get there, but you have to take action.
I think the responsibility part's probably a massive part of that too. Like if you believe that you're in your position because of your actions, then you can change that.
That's the interesting thing. I was reflecting on that exact thought yesterday, and just something recently happened. I was like, every bad decision or every really challenging, even adversity, right? It's somewhat my responsibility. Like if I connect with someone that's a bad friend, it's my fault. It's not my fault. It's his fault because he's a dickhead. It's like, no, it's my fault for not seeing certain things and connecting with this individual and being vulnerable to this person and being friends with him. Like, how is that not my responsibility? So I think if everyone actually starts taking responsibility for things and going, I made the decision, and the sequence of events led me to where I'm at right now, to this problem. Whether it's your partner, it's like, oh, I've had this partner and she's such a bitch, but like you chose her to be your partner. Like what was it that drew you to her? Like, what value does she provide? What value you're providing her? And all of a sudden now she's a B, but like something happened there. You made the decision and you continue to make the decision to be with her. So who's actually the victim here? You taking responsibility or you're playing victim?
I think victim mentality is a massive thing at the moment. It's what people try and out-victim themselves, but the more you put yourself in victimhood, the less power you've given yourself to get yourself out of that. Because if it's everybody else's fault that you're there, then it's everybody else's fault to get you out of it. Whereas if you take it on as, and even if it's not your fault, but you're like, look, I put myself in that situation, or I did this or I did that to get myself there, then you realize that you need to put yourself somewhere else to get yourself out of it. Like I love what you said before with if you don't have a good circle of friends, stay home. Like there's so many kids that get wound up in gangs and all that sort of stuff. And they're like, oh, well, who else am I going to hang out with? I might jump on the internet, jump on YouTube, get some amazing new people to listen to.
You can even if you really don't know what to do, just play some games. Like that's not like worst case scenario. Playing games is better than going out and doing some crazy stuff. Well, get a gym membership. Go to the gym late at night. I remember when I was like, I don't want to go out on a Friday, Saturday night. I made it certain that my Friday, Saturday night was in the gym. That's how you stay out of trouble. Because I'm like, I'm committed to my goal. Like I don't know everything else, like in terms of my business career, but I'm going to work on developing my physique and I'm not going to be drinking alcohol. So I'm not going to go to the bars or clubs, but Friday, Saturday nights in the gym until I figure out what else I'm going to do. So there's always a plan. There's always something else that you can do with your time rather than, in that case with the kids who you're hanging out with, some lunatics, in the western suburbs. Not a good idea.
And it's like, it's cool to steal a car at 15. You're like, wow, we're mad car theft people. I'm like, well, what's that really doing for you? Because if you don't do that and you actually get an education, you get yourself a real job and that sort of stuff, you can actually own that car as opposed to steal it, and that's so much more impressive if you're just out there in your own G-Wagon listening to tunes rather than someone else's that you've stolen. And for starters, you then can't go to America. You can't do all this stuff that you don't understand as a kid, the repercussions of what you thought was fun, like you crash into a family car and you kill a kid or you do whatever else it is. There's so many things that hanging around with the wrong crowd will put you behind with life-changing expectations. So if you stay at home because you don't have a great circle of friends, because people are like, how do I get out of the gang mentality? And I was like, just stay away from them. But just stay home and jump on YouTube and learn and get yourself ahead is definitely a thing, because there's a lot of people in lower socioeconomic places that would say, oh, it's all good and well to go to uni and do whatever else it is, but they can't. But you're right, there is so much stuff to learn on YouTube now that if you sit at home and a gym thing is amazing because you'll increase your discipline goes up if you're going to the gym all the time. Then you've also got like a lot of them have got basketball courts. They've got like rock climbing and stuff around the outside. There's heaps of stuff now, man.
Spoiled. You're so like, come on.
Yeah, I'm seeing kids now like I don't say kids, they're not like 12, they're like 18, 19, 20, etc. But like they're in there doing saunas now. Like, so they go to the gym, then they go to a sauna and they're having a yarn, then they go out and they have a shake afterwards. I'm like, these guys are miles ahead of where we were. Like footy was sinking beers and smoking cigarettes like in the showers after the game and stuff. So recovery and mindset and information out there is so much more ahead now. Like the fact that you can sit at home at 15 and get an education on YouTube, which is far superior to your school education, is a real leg up provided you take it.
And like you've said, the 5 people you surround yourself with, that can be Grant Cardone, Les Brown. Like they shouldn't just be internet people forever, but you can exchange bad relationships for those mentors for a while and then, get into a business, work for someone and then adapt real mentors again. Absolutely.
And that's something that I adopted myself because I didn't have, I believe, a good circle of influence. And, people, they might be going, oh, let's go for drinks. I'm like, but I want to stay fit. I'm trying to work on my physique here and I'm trying to study. So it's like my friends became the internet, Grant, like exactly what you said, Grant Cardone. I went through a phase where everything was his GC, Grant Cardone. I'm like, I need to learn everything that he puts out. So not only was I doing his course at the time, but I looked at all his content and I was like, wow, this guy's got so much confidence. Like, how can I be that confident? And then I'm like, I need to start like pitching. And then you start pitching around the house and practicing like your sales pitch. And then you realize you're talking like this and like you're like monotone and you're like, no, there's a bit of, you can actually talk with some energy. And even that concept, it took a while to figure that out. But you only figure things out if you're taking action and you're practicing, and then you record yourself and listen and go, your weakness might be public speaking. Okay, cool. What are you going to do about it? You know, just avoid that for the rest of your life, or you know, are you going to practice? And you could literally just record yourself talking, answering questions, and see how you go. If it's a sales pitch, it's very easy. Just repetition. Listen back to the video and go, oh, that was actually not that exciting. I sound very monotone. I didn't know that I sound like this, so I need to change the way that I'm talking, my tonality. So, and I think it all goes back to taking personal responsibility and then taking action. And your best friends could be YouTube, and that's fine if it's YouTube, because it was for me for a while.
It's also good to hear that you didn't sort of throw out Grant Cardone because there were some things you didn't agree with, or Gary Vee because he swore. Whereas a lot of people will just hear a few things and go, oh, that's not for me. But 9 out of 10 lessons that they teach might be really important and relevant. So we've got to be mindful of that we can take something from almost anybody, but there'll always be something we don't align with. But we add all of those experiences or lessons together.
Absolutely.
Which is what forms who each of us become.
And now we've got ChatGPT. Like, if you're not a reader, it's literally a cheat code. So there's so many different business books out there, and that's something that I did as well. I bought so many different business books. I'm like, I need to learn as much as possible. And at one point I was reading like at least a book a week, and they're all like self-development books. But now you don't even need to do that. You can literally just go on ChatGPT and go, you know, whatever book it is, Think and Grow Rich. Can you summarize the first chapter for me in 500 words? Second chapter, 500 words. And then it's like, if you find something that you're like, oh, wow, I'd like to know more about that third chapter that's been summarized. Can you expand on that? Give me 2,000 words on XYZ. You literally have the information at your fingertips. Like it's so easy to be educated these days, especially when you're using something like ChatGPT. So you can use the technology to your advantage. Whereas before, I'd have to go and read the whole book. And I'm like, oh, I better not skip a chapter because there might be something really important in that chapter. Now it's so easy.
I think even when I have finished a book, like they can be so long, it's good to even go back and just summarize it in ChatGPT or something again and just quickly like cover off on all those lessons again.
Oh yeah, repetition is so important.
Cool. All right, I'm going to chase that pigeon off, mate, and then we'll come back. If everyone's happy. Bye.
Just do it. What's the worst that's going to happen? Just do it. Simple.